It's a clear-cut case of cause and effect as more parents choose not to vaccinate their kids. The number of measles cases go up, but even though claims of a connection between vaccines and autism have been conclusively debunked, the media is still presenting both sides of the story. WGBH's Adam Riley has more.
Here in the U.S., measles infections have skyrocketed.
The media hit the measles beat hard this week, covering a nationwide outbreak that shows no signs of slowing down.
As many as 5 babies are sick, all under the age of 1.
Measles is on the march because many parents erroneously think that vaccines cause autism and choose not to vaccinate their kids. Some reports have stressed how irrational those fears are.
There's just absolutely no scientific evidence to back that up.
But others gave a platform to dubious talking heads.
Brain damage and death are common side effects.
And ill-informed parents.
I'm not going to put my child at risk to save another child.
Which raises a question. Since the media doesn't give equal time to creationists or climate change deniers, why are vaccines different? One possible answer, because some politicians just don't get it either.
I've heard of many tragic cases of walking, talking, normal children who wound up with profound mental disorders after vaccines.
And when a potential presidential candidate makes comments like that, you have to cover them, for better or worse.
That's like Mike Huckabee saying you choose to be gay. But I mean, this is a constant problem with the media, which is that the false equivalency on the one hand, on the other hand. And many, many news organizations, including the Huffington Post was the first to start it, said, we are no longer giving voice to the climate change deniers. That debate is over. And this debate is over too. But with something like the measles, I didn't realize that so many people have decided not to vaccinate their kids. I guess that some kids are too young, under 5 months or something like that. But this idea that this has caught on is really frightening.
But see, I don't think you blame the mainstream media for that. I mean, what really has happened is there's this democratization of information. If you're a parent and your kid is 2 and in line for the vaccine, you start going to the University of Google. That's what Jenny McCarthy said she used. Yeah. You can find a wealth of information online. It looks like it's scientific or it looks like dueling studies. It's hard to know what's credible and what isn't. So you either choose to believe the medical establishment and the mainstream media saying this has been debunked, or you choose not to. And the problem is there's too much information out there. People can choose what they want.
Would you say that about climate change, though?
Probably I would. Yeah, it's probably it's the same issue. It's just there's not an immediate public health concern with climate change.
Yeah, all the more reason why, though, the media should cover it. But cover it smart, challenge it, provide debate. I mean, false equivalency is a casually thrown around term. That doesn't mean you have a total blackout on information you believe to be off the deep end. When you know that it's getting widespread traction in the culture, I think it's negligence to not cover that fact, report on it, and, debunk it if you think you've got the facts straight, by all means. But to just sit back and say, oh, well, we're not going to report on that, as Joanna points out, people who want to have their suspicion or their instinct reaffirmed will find plenty of opportunity to do so.
Not that we can let such things affect our news judgment, but as much as I would love to agree with you, John, studies have shown that even challenging people the way you talk about only reinforces the false belief. That said, we can't ignore this, and it's impossible to ignore when you've got major presidential candidates providing aid and comfort to the anti-vaxxers. I mean, you can't just ignore what Rand Paul and Chris Christie is saying just because they don't fit your belief about what you should be covering. It's a mess, and I just feel like everything is on the table as a partisan issue at this point, and it's very strange.
Some reporters have done the read between the lines thing, where they've pointed out that these people are, my kid is the Messiah, the Messiah has been born, and I don't care if I'm going to make 1 million other kids sick because my kid is the Messiah, I'm going to put this poison in him. There was a New York Times story, which I just loved, where the 16-year-old had not been vaccinated, and because she hadn't been vaccinated, they're going to keep her out of school for 2 weeks, and she was all upset because she was going to miss some AP classes or something. She said, please, Mom, I want the vaccine. vaccine. And the mother says, absolutely not. You're not going to get that vaccine. And I'm thinking, this woman is just a jerk. And I think the Times pointed that out, and you can see this in a lot of these stories. So I have no use for these anti-vaccination people, although the medical establishment has been wrong about lots of things, including smoking, for many years. So that's part of the reason why people go off on these tangents, because they think the AMA is historically been a little slow on some of these major.
All I know is, I'm sorry, I beg to differ, Dan, that there's no point in debunking them. During a presidential race in particular, I get on a daily basis emails from people, John, we trust your judgment. We heard that Barack Obama's birth certificate is a fake and blah, blah, blah. And I do my best to debunk it for them and steer them to factual websites and so forth. More often than not, they say, thank you, I'll pass it on to my idiot cousin who sent me this junk in the first place. So I think there is some merit in pushing back.
And I don't want to come off as nihilistic about this. We should push back because we should push back. It's the right thing to do. But I don't think we ought to be overly optimistic about what the result is going to be.
There's been a bit of a public shaming in the last week since the Disney outbreak. There's been a public shaming, and there's been reporting that people are actually lining up to go get their kids vaccinated now, and that's partly because they've seen the light of truth and science, but I think it's partly because they're embarrassed.
Public shaming's a great thing.
It's a great thing. I love it.